I sat at the dinner table, watching my wife Lisa scroll mindlessly through her phone. She had barely touched her food. The flickering candlelight cast shadows on her face, highlighting the deep frown lines that had formed over the past few days. She was distant, completely disconnected, and I knew exactly why. It all started a week ago when my brother Tom called me late at night. He sounded excited, almost breathless. "Hey, man, I just wanted to let you know, Kathy's pregnant." His wife, Kathy, had taken a test that morning, and it came back positive. They had been trying for months, and now it finally happened. I congratulated him, feeling genuinely happy. But as soon as I hung up the phone, a knot formed in my gut. Lisa had been acting off ever since we had our successful embryo implantation a few weeks earlier. She should have been overjoyed, but instead, she seemed angry, restless. When I told her about Tom and Kathy's pregnancy, her reaction was instant rage. Her face twisted, and she practically spat her words. "Are you serious? They knew everything we went through. And they decided to get pregnant right after us?" I was stunned. "Lisa, they've been trying for almost a year. It's not like they did it to spite us." She scoffed. "Of course, you'd defend them. You always take their side." Since that night, she had barely spoken to me. She refused to answer Tom's calls. And worst of all, she had completely cut off my mother after learning that she had mentioned our implantation to a few relatives before we told her to keep it private. I put my fork down. "Lisa, we need to talk." She didn't look up. "I'm not in the mood." "You haven't been in the mood for a week." She exhaled sharply, finally locking eyes with me. "I just can't believe how selfish your family is. I finally get my moment, and they steal it." "It's not a competition," I said, trying to stay calm. "We're all starting families. That should be a good thing." Her eyes darkened. "You don't get it, do you? This was supposed to be special. For once in my life, I was supposed to be the one people focused on. But no, now it's about them. And you not even excited for this baby. You don't even want it." I leaned forward, trying to steady my voice. "That's not true, and you know it." You just what?" she snapped. I hesitated. "I'm nervous. We've been through so much. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I just want to be sure everything is okay before we celebrate." She pushed her chair back abruptly, standing up. "So, what? You think I'm going to lose this baby? You waiting for it to happen?" "Lisa, that's not—" "I can't do this right now," she muttered and stormed out of the room. I sat there, staring at her untouched plate. This wasn't just hormones. Something deeper was going on. And for the first time since this all started, a thought crept into my mind: was she hiding something from me? The house was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Lisa had locked herself in the bedroom after our argument, and I decided to give her space. I sat on the couch, staring at my phone, debating whether to call Tom. Would he even understand? I opened our family group chat. Lisa had muted it weeks ago, but I still checked it daily. Messages from my mom and Tom filled the screen. "Mom, tell Lisa I'm sorry if I overstepped. I just got excited." Tom, hey, man, I know Lisa's upset. If she needs space, we get it. Kathy wants to check on her, but we don't want to make things worse. I sighed and put the phone down. A few minutes later, I heard the bedroom door creak open. Lisa walked out, her face blank, her phone clutched in her hand. She didn't acknowledge me, just moved toward the kitchen. "You haven't eaten," I said, watching her open the fridge. "I'm not hungry," she muttered. "Lisa, we need to talk about this." She let out a humorless laugh. "About what?" The fact that my own husband isn't excited about our baby? Or that your brother and his wife decided to get pregnant just to take the spotlight? I pinched the bridge of my nose. You know that's not true. They've been trying since their wedding. She slammed the fridge shut. Yeah. And how convenient that it happened now. I was about to argue, but then I noticed something. Her hands were shaking. Her whole body looked tense, like she was holding something in. Lisa, I said carefully, what's really going on? She froze for a second, then turned around. I told you already. Your family is selfish. I studied her face. There was something off about her tone, something forced. You've been acting different for weeks, I continued. Not just since we found out about Kathy. Before that, even after the implantation, you were distant. She crossed her arms. I was stressed. That's not all it is, though, is it? Her jaw clenched. I don't like where this conversation is going. I took a slow breath. Lisa, if there's something you need to tell me, just say it. She stared at me, and for a brief moment, I saw something in her eyes. Fear? Guilt? But just as quickly as it appeared, it was gone. You being paranoid, she snapped. I just want to be left alone. She grabbed a glass of water and walked back to the bedroom, shutting the door harder than necessary. I sat there, replaying the conversation in my head. Something wasn't adding up. And then, like a punch to the gut, a memory surfaced. 3 weeks ago, before we found out the implantation was successful, Tom had been over at the house a lot. Helping Lisa with little things. Fixing the sink. Running errands for her when I was at work. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. But now? Now I wasn't so sure. I picked up my phone again and scrolled back through my messages. A text from Tom stood out, from around the same time. Tom, hey, man, just checking in on Lisa. She seemed down earlier. Let me know if she needs anything. It had felt like a normal message back then. But now? Now it felt like something more. I had a sinking feeling in my gut. Something wasn't right. And I was going to find out what. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, my mind kept circling back to the same thoughts: Lisa's strange behavior, Tom's constant presence, the way she snapped at me whenever I brought up her mood swings. By morning, I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. I needed answers. Lisa was still asleep when I got up. I moved quietly, grabbing my phone and stepping out onto the porch. The early morning air was crisp, but I barely noticed. My fingers hovered over Tom's contact. Calling him directly felt too obvious. Instead, I decided to start with something smaller. I scrolled through my old messages with Lisa, looking for anything unusual. Most of our texts were routine, grocery lists, reminders, check-ins. But then I saw something that made my breath catch. A message from Lisa, sent late at night 2 weeks ago. Lisa, thanks for checking on me today. I really needed that. I don't know what I'd do without you. I clicked on it, expecting to see my name above it. But it wasn't me. It was Tom. My chest tightened as I scrolled further. The conversation was short, nothing blatantly incriminating, but the tone was too intimate. Tom, are you strong, Lisa? I just want to make sure you're okay. You know I'm always here for you. Lisa, I know. It means a lot. I stared at the screen. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe she had just needed support and Tom was being a good brother-in-law. But why hadn't she told me? I clenched my jaw and closed the messages. If I wanted real proof, I needed more than just a gut feeling. I took a deep breath and walked back inside. Lisa was still in bed, curled up under the blankets. I grabbed her phone from the nightstand as gently as I could. The screen was locked. I knew her passcode. I hesitated for a second, then typed it in. Her messages loaded instantly. And then, just like that, my entire world collapsed. There were dozens of messages between Lisa and Tom. Some of them harmless, others, far from it. Lisa, I can't stop thinking about last time. I feel so guilty, but I don't know what to do. Tom, it's okay. No one will ever know. Just focus on your pregnancy. That's what matters now. My stomach dropped. Last time? I scrolled up frantically, my hands shaking. And then I found it. A message from 3 weeks ago. Lisa, we shouldn't have done that. I love Michael. I don't know how to face him now. Tom, it happened. We can't change that. But we need to be careful. I stared at the words, feeling like I had been punched in the gut. Tom. My own brother. I clenched the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. Every muscle in my body screamed for action, for confrontation, for revenge. But I forced myself to breathe. This wasn't over. Not yet. Lisa stirred in bed. I quickly put her phone back and stepped out of the room before she could wake up. I needed to think. I needed a plan. Because this wasn't just betrayal. This was war. I walked out of the bedroom, my hands clenched into fists. My body felt like it was on autopilot as I made my way to the kitchen. The betrayal was suffocating. My own wife. My own brother. I grabbed a glass of water and forced myself to take slow sips. My mind was racing, but I knew I couldn't lose control. Not yet. I needed more proof. Lisa's texts were bad enough, but they weren't definitive. I needed something concrete. Something that would crush any attempt at denial. And I knew exactly where to start. Lisa's doctor appointment was scheduled for next week. The first full ultrasound. A moment I had been looking forward to, before all of this. Now, it was my chance to get answers. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. There it was, the fertility clinic's number. I hesitated for a moment before calling. A woman's voice answered. Dr. Bennett's office, how can I help you? Hi, this is Michael Carter, I said, keeping my voice steady. My wife, Lisa Carter, is a patient of Dr. Bennett. I just had a quick question about our upcoming appointment. Of course, Mr. Carter. How can I help? I exhaled. I just wanted to confirm, since we had the embryo implantation done in February, the ultrasound next week should be able to tell us everything, right? There was a short pause. Yes, at that stage, we'll be able to confirm growth, development, and genetic markers if you opted for testing. Are you referring to something specific? I hesitated, then decided to push further. Yeah, actually. I just wanted to be completely sure that the embryo we implanted was, the one we originally selected. No mix-ups or anything, right? She let out a small, polite laugh. Oh no, Mr. Carter. We have very strict protocols in place. There's no chance of a mix-up. Your embryo was implanted successfully, and the genetic testing confirmed the match before the procedure. Relief flooded through me. So the baby really was mine. At least, that's what the clinic thought. I clenched my jaw. Lisa had slept with Tom after the implantation. There was still a chance, a very real possibility, that the baby growing inside her wasn't mine. I thanked the receptionist and ended the call. My head was pounding. I needed a DNA test. But how the hell was I going to get one without Lisa knowing? I pulled up a browser on my phone and started searching. Home paternity tests, secret DNA testing, there were options. Some required a cheek swab, but others Others only needed a hair sample. That could work. I glanced toward the bedroom. Lisa was still asleep. Her brush was on the dresser. I walked in quietly, my pulse hammering in my ears. Careful not to make a sound, I picked up the brush. Blonde strands of hair were tangled in the bristles. I pulled them out, wrapping them carefully in a tissue. This was step one. Now, I just had to wait. Wait for the test results. Wait to see just how deep this betrayal went. And when I had my answer, when I knew, I was going to make them both pay. The waiting was unbearable. Every hour felt like a day, and every day stretched endlessly. The DNA test results would take at least a week, but my patience was running thin. Lisa, oblivious to my suspicions, continued her routine as if nothing was wrong. She hummed while making breakfast, scrolled endlessly through her phone, and acted like the devoted wife she had pretended to be for years. But now, every word she spoke, every glance she gave me, felt fake. And Tom, he was around more than ever. At first, I thought it was just my paranoia, but the more I watched, the clearer it became. He found every excuse to be at our house. Hey, Lisa, need help carrying those groceries? Lisa, let me take a look at that squeaky cabinet door for you. Lisa, you shouldn't be lifting heavy stuff in your condition. It was disgusting. He played the concerned brother-in-law, but I saw right through it. He wasn't helping me, he was helping her. Taking care of her. And every time he touched her shoulder, every time they exchanged looks, I felt the rage build inside me. One evening, I decided to test them. We were sitting in the living room, Lisa stretched out on the couch, Tom in the armchair. I took a sip of my beer and looked straight at my brother. You ever think about having kids, Tom? Lisa stiffened. Barely noticeable, but I caught it. Tom chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah, man. I mean, we're not in a rush, but someday, sure. I smiled. Must be exciting, watching Lisa go through it first. You'll get a preview of what to expect, right? Lisa cleared her throat. Michael, I'm getting tired. Maybe we should. Nah, I'm curious. I leaned forward. You've been spending a lot of time here, Tom. Almost like you're practicing. His smile faltered. Just for a second. Lisa's eyes darted between us. Michael, stop. He's just being a good uncle. I didn't break eye contact with Tom. Yeah? A good uncle? I let the words sit in the air. The tension thickened. Lisa's fingers gripped the couch cushion. Tom shifted in his seat. I took another sip of my beer. Good, I said finally, my voice calm. Because this kid is gonna need all the family support it can get. You know, considering everything. Tom forced a laugh. Of course, man. Family sticks together. Lisa let out a breath, forcing a smile. Exactly. But I wasn't fooled. Something wasn't right. And soon, I was going to have proof. I finished my beer, stood up, and stretched. Well, I'm beat. Tom, you sticking around, or are you heading out? Lisa's lips parted slightly. Was she nervous about my question? Tom hesitated. Oh. I was gonna head out, yeah. Good. I clapped him on the shoulder, squeezing just hard enough to make him tense. Drive safe. I turned and walked toward the bedroom, my blood boiling under my skin. A few more days. Then I'd know the truth. And when I did, I'd make sure neither of them forgot it. The days dragged on, each one filled with a suffocating tension. Lisa acted as if everything was normal, but I could see it in her eyes, she was nervous. Maybe she felt the shift in my attitude, the way I observed her every move now, the way I barely spoke unless necessary. And Tom? He had backed off slightly after our last conversation, but not completely. He still texted Lisa often, and when he did come by, he always made sure to check her well-being first, as if his concern mattered more than mine. I was losing sleep, my thoughts spiraling. The idea that my own brother could have done this to me made my stomach twist. I needed the DNA results, but I also needed to keep myself together until then. On the fourth day, something changed. Lisa was in the shower, and her phone was left on the nightstand. Normally, she was careful about where she left it, but this time she must have been distracted. The screen lit up. Tom, we should talk. Call me later when you can. I grabbed the phone. My pulse pounded in my ears. I clicked open their messages, scrolling through the thread. Most of it seemed harmless. Checking in, asking about cravings, small talk. But then... Tom, I still can't believe it happened. Feels unreal. Lisa, I know. I don't even know how to process it. Tom, we need to figure things out. Before he finds out. The air in my lungs felt too thick. My grip on the phone tightened. Before he finds out. My hands shook, but I forced myself to stay calm. I took quick photos of the messages with my own phone, then set hers back exactly how I found it. I left the bedroom, walking into the kitchen, gripping the counter to steady myself. My thoughts raced. So it was true. Tom had slept with my wife. And now they were worried about me finding out. A low, bitter chuckle escaped me. Too late for that. I had to be smart. Storming in there now, screaming, demanding the truth, that wouldn't give me the satisfaction I wanted. No, I needed to play this right. Lisa walked into the kitchen a few minutes later, her hair damp, a towel wrapped around her body. Hey, babe, she said softly, pretending like everything was fine. You okay? I turned, forcing a smile. Yeah. Just thinking. She walked closer, resting a hand on my arm. About what? I exhaled, keeping my voice steady. About us. The future. The baby. Her expression softened. I know you're scared. But this is our moment, Michael. A moment? She had no idea I knew. I played along, nodding, brushing a hand along her cheek. You're right, I murmured. Everything's going to be just fine. But inside, I was already planning how I was going to destroy them both. The game had begun. I spent the next few days acting like the devoted husband, hiding my rage beneath a mask of calm. Lisa had no idea that every time she smiled at me, I was picturing how I would take everything from her. Every time she touched my hand, I imagined how she would beg for forgiveness when the truth came crashing down. But I wasn't going to just expose them. That was too easy. Too simple. I wanted them to feel the weight of their betrayal, to suffer the way they had made me suffer. The first step? Making Lisa trust me even more. I started being more involved in the pregnancy, asking questions about doctor's appointments, bringing her snacks, acting excited about the baby. At first, she seemed surprised, even suspicious, but soon enough, she relaxed. She thought I had finally come around. See, she said one evening, resting her head on my shoulder. I knew you'd be happy about this. I smiled, kissing the top of her head. Of course, sweetheart. I just needed some time to process everything. The irony was almost too much to bear. The next part of my plan required patience. I needed more than just text messages. I needed proof, undeniable, inescapable proof that Lisa and Tom had betrayed me. And so, I set a trap. I told Lisa that I'd be working late all week. Big project at the office, I explained, sighing dramatically. I'll be home late, so don't wait up. She frowned but nodded. I'll miss you. Liar. That night, instead of going to work, I parked my car a few blocks away from the house and waited. If I was right, Lisa would take this opportunity to see Tom. They had been careful so far, but cheaters always get comfortable. They always slip up. Hours passed. The street was quiet, the glow of our house's windows soft against the dark. And then? Tom's car pulled up. I gripped the steering wheel, forcing myself to stay calm. I couldn't afford to lose control now. I needed proof. Tom got out, carrying a small bag. Probably bringing her food, like the caring, helpful uncle-to-be. My stomach twisted in disgust as I watched him walk up to my front door and let himself in. I grabbed my phone and started recording. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Then 2. The lights in the living room turned off. Only the bedroom light remained. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. I imagined them inside, whispering, touching, laughing at me. My own brother. My wife. In my bed. But I didn't move. I had waited this long. I could wait a little longer. Because soon, very soon, they would regret ever thinking they could get away with this. The next morning, I acted as if nothing had happened. Lisa was in an unusually good mood, humming to herself as she made breakfast. "Did you sleep well?" she asked, pouring me a cup of coffee. I took a sip, looking at her over the rim of the mug. "Yeah." "You?" She smiled. Like a baby. Of course, she did. After all, she wasn't sleeping alone. I played along, pretending everything was normal. But inside, I was already planning my next move. I needed more than just a video of Tom arriving at the house. It wasn't enough. They could lie their way out of it, make excuses. No, I needed something concrete, something irrefutable. So, I did something I never thought I'd have to do. I hired a private investigator. I found him through an old friend, someone discreet, efficient, and ruthless when it came to exposing the truth. We met at a diner outside of town, far away from anyone who might recognize me. "You want the full package?" he asked, stirring his coffee. "Photos, videos, timestamps?" I nodded. "Everything. I want every detail. I want them caught in the act." The investigator, a man named Grant, smirked. "No problem. Give me a week." I barely made it through the next few days without snapping. Tom continued to show up, acting like the doting brother-in-law, always finding an excuse to be around Lisa. He even brought her flowers one evening. "For the beautiful mother-to-be," he said, handing her the bouquet. I clenched my fists under the table as Lisa blushed. "That's sweet, Tom," she said, her voice softer than it ever was with me. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, counting down the hours until Grant called me. And when he finally did, my hands were shaking as I answered. "Got what you need," he said. "You might want to sit down for this." I didn't. "Tell me." He sighed. "Your wife and your brother aren't just sneaking around. They've been at it for months." "The pregnancy?" "Yeah, it's not yours, man." The words slammed into me like a freight train. I forced myself to breathe. "You sure?" "I had the paternity test done. Collected samples from your wife's trash, used napkins, hair, all of it." "The baby?" "It's Tom's." My grip tightened around the phone. "Send me everything." "You got it." Minutes later, my email pinged. I opened the files. Photos. Videos. Lisa and Tom, meeting at a hotel. Kissing in his car. Laughing together. And then, the ultimate betrayal, footage from our bedroom. I felt sick. The rage inside me burned hotter than ever. But I didn't break. I didn't scream. I didn't confront them. Not yet. No, I was going to make them pay. And when I was done, neither of them would have anything left. I sat in my truck outside the house, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. The images, the videos, the DNA results, all of it burned in my mind like a fresh wound. Lisa had lied to my face, every single day, while Tom played the devoted family man. And now I knew the truth. But knowledge wasn't enough. I needed revenge. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I couldn't just burst in there and start screaming. That would be too easy, too predictable. No, I wanted to destroy them in a way they'd never recover from. So, I called Emily, Tom's wife. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey, Michael. What's up?" I hesitated for a second. I almost felt bad for what I was about to do to her world. But then I remembered the smirk on Tom's face, the way Lisa blushed whenever he was around. They didn't care about the people they were hurting. It was time for them to feel the same pain. "Emily," I said, my voice calm, steady. "We need to talk. In person." She paused. "Is everything okay?" "No. It's not." Silence. Then, "Come over." 20 minutes later, I was in their living room. Emily looked worried, sitting across from me on the couch. "You scaring me," she said. "What's going on?" I pulled out my phone and slid it across the table. "Press play." She did. And I watched as her entire world collapsed. Her face drained of color. Her hands trembled. Her breathing turned shallow. By the time the video ended, she looked like she might be sick. That's not real," she whispered. "This has to be fake." "It's real," I said. "All of it." "And the baby Lisa's carrying?" "It's Tom's." Tears welled up in her eyes. She covered her mouth, shaking her head. "No," she said. "No, no, no." She wasn't denying it anymore. She was just breaking. And I let her. Because I had already broken too. For the next half hour, we sat in silence. Emily sobbed, gripping a pillow like it was the only thing keeping her together. I just stared at the floor, feeling nothing but cold, empty rage. Then, she wiped her eyes and looked at me. "What do we do?" she asked. Not what do I do. What do we do? I met her gaze. And in that moment, a plan started to form. One that would leave Lisa and Tom with nothing. I leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen." Emily wiped her eyes, her breathing still uneven. The betrayal had shattered her, but I could already see something else flickering beneath the surface. Anger. A deep, burning rage that mirrored my own. "They think they've won," she muttered, staring blankly at the wall. "They think we'll just roll over and accept this." I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. "We're not going to accept it," I said. "We're going to destroy them." She looked at me then, and for the first time, there was something sharp in her gaze. "How?" I took a deep breath. "First, we make sure they don't see it coming." We spent the next hour putting everything in place. I had proof, videos, messages, even the DNA test confirming that Tom was the father of Lisa's baby. But revenge wasn't just about revealing the truth. It was about making them feel what we felt. The humiliation. The loss. The betrayal. Emily still had access to their shared bank accounts. With a few quiet transfers, she drained every single cent into an account only she controlled. Tom had always made sure their assets were in both their names, she just made sure they were in hers now. Meanwhile, I focused on Lisa. I had already spoken to a lawyer earlier that day. Texas was a no-fault divorce state, but that didn't mean I had to walk away with nothing. I had the upper hand now, and I was going to use it. The next morning, I acted like nothing had changed. I made Lisa her usual coffee, kissed her cheek, and told her I was meeting up with a friend for lunch. She smiled, clueless. Emily did the same with Tom. We waited until they left for work. Then we made our move. By noon, Lisa's credit cards were frozen. A joint bank account? Cleared out. The house? Signed over to me through an agreement she had drunkenly signed months ago when we were updating some paperwork. Tom's situation was even worse. By the time he checked his phone at lunch, he found himself locked out of everything: bank accounts, their shared investments, even the lease on his car. Emily had already filed for divorce, citing infidelity, and thanks to a few well-placed emails to his boss, his company got wind of his extracurricular activities with a married woman. By the evening, the chaos had fully erupted. Lisa came home screaming, demanding to know what was happening. I sat on the couch, calm, and slid the DNA test across the coffee table. "Pack your stuff," I said. "You not staying here." Her face turned ghostly pale. "Michael, please, let's talk." "There's nothing to talk about," I cut in. "You carrying my brother's child. You destroyed our marriage. Now you get to live with the consequences." Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. She knew it was over. Meanwhile, Tom had shown up at his own house to find the locks changed, divorce papers taped to the door, and a crowd of neighbors whispering as Emily stood in the driveway, tossing his clothes onto the grass. The fallout was instant. Lisa had nowhere to go. Tom had nothing left. And Emily and I? We walked away, leaving them with the ruins of their own making.